Addiction comes in many different forms. Not all addicts are hooked on drugs or alcohol. In Australia, a man battles an uncontrollable impulse to spend.
I just can't explain my actions.
In the US, a mother has an insatiable appetite for sex with strangers.
I have no idea how many men I've slept with. I've tried to make a list. I got to the point where I couldn't remember names anymore.
In the Swiss Alps, a base jumper risks his life for a fleeting fix of adrenaline.
If you base jump long enough, you're going to see someone get hurt and you're going to see someone die.
And in South Korea, to tackle his addiction to gaming, a teenager is sent to rehab.
Last summer holiday, I woke up around 11 in the morning and played 13 to 14 hours.
To many, these behavioral addicts display a loss of control that's antisocial and dangerous. Drugs and alcohol are familiar substances of addiction. But human beings don't need to inject, inhale, or swallow a substance in order to get a high or to become addicted. People can also become dependent on everyday behaviors. And the symptoms of these behavioral addictions can closely mirror those induced by drugs.
The similarities between behavioral addictions and substance addictions involve the repeated engaging in harmful but pleasurable behavior, the inability to refrain from doing this, the loss of control, craving, and withdrawal symptoms.
Also known as compulsive disorders, behavioral addictions appear to be on the rise. They threaten marriages, finances, even life itself.
Behavioral addictions can be just as dangerous, if not more, than drugs or alcohol.
Just as substance addicts have often been persecuted and reviled by society, this new breed of addict is also considered taboo.
I think there is a stigma attached to being labelled an addict because it suggests that you're not in control of your own behaviour. And we value that. We value being self-directing. I think that's, at least in part, where the stigma comes from.
Addicts can lose control in the most ordinary of situations. To most people, shopping is nothing more than a modern necessity. But for others, it holds a buzz as potent as cocaine, turning retail therapy into a devastating addiction. It's 3 a.m. in Sydney, Australia, and Brian Wiseman is unable to sleep. He's in the grip of a compulsion he can't control.
I do try and snap myself out of it, try to push it out of my mind.
But tonight he can't resist. Under the cover of darkness, he drives to a place where he knows he can get the high he craves.
It's very, very hard to actually stand up and say, my name is Brian Wiseman, I'm a shopaholic.
Compulsive buying is sometimes called the smiled upon addiction, perhaps because The media talk about retail therapy and portray people going shopping to have a good time, but don't portray the adverse consequences like bankruptcy, divorce, unmanageable debt.
Brian is already deep in debt, and his house is full of unused purchases bought on the spur of the moment.
This chair came from a TV shopping channel, and I got it, assembled it, sat in it, and I've used it once.
It's a similar story with his gym equipment.
I thought I'd use a treadmill, but I haven't. This is a sort of like an abdominal machine. I've never used it. The vibrating plate, I haven't even switched this one on.
He has dozens of designer watches,
Best part of 50 grand.
over 70 pairs of shoes, hundreds of shirts,
Most of these have got their labels on them.
vitamins, aftershaves, and new packages arrive every day.
I think the only time I went 24 hours without shopping is when I actually had to go into hospital for an operation and I physically could not get out of the bed.
Like many addicts, Brian tries to hide the full extent of his condition.
This is a room that I very rarely bring people into. It's my secret room.
Alongside $70,000 worth of designer luggage are dozens of unopened purchases.
And I've got air purifiers. You know, I didn't buy one, I bought 3. And I haven't used them yet. It's easier to lie and just to cover up than to admit you've got an addiction. I feel like crap standing in this room with all this stuff around me, knowing that, you know, I'm never going to use it, and I'm just bringing it in and I'm just hoarding it, and I'm never... Sorry.
Brian suffers from depression, and for years he's been using shopping as therapy. To him, the act of purchasing is more important than the product itself.
Typically, shopping addicts buy things that they don't need. There's a loss of control over the behavior. Most of the time, they're buying things for the high, not for the necessity of the object.
Brian shops because it makes him feel good.
It's an amazing feeling. It's just giving me an amazing rush. It's better than alcohol, better than anything. It's just fantastic.
He experiences a natural euphoria which mirrors the high of a drug addict.
When a person who's suffering from cocaine addiction snorts cocaine up their nose or shoots it up their arm, what happens is there's an incredible rush of dopamine in the brain, and exactly the same sort of thing happens when someone's involved in a gambling addiction or a shopping addiction. There's the rush, there's that high.
Brian sees something he must have.
How's your day been so far?
Not too bad, things. Yeah, and I was just sort of like walking past and it sort of like caught my eye.
It's the big hit he's been craving.
So how much?
4,700.
Yeah, well, I think you've sold it.
Sold it, yeah? I think so.
Brian pays almost $5,000 to satisfy his addiction.
As soon as I put it on, it felt really, really good. It was like I got this, I don't know, like a euphoric feeling.
But it's a short-lived high. The roller coaster of addiction soon sends him crashing back to earth. Half an hour later, he puts his new watch with the rest of his collection.
I've got my thrill out of buying it, and it's pretty much the thrill is worn off. Don't feel any better now. I know how I feel. I feel 10 times worse.
Brian inherited a small fortune after the death of his parents, but most of it has already been spent, and now he lives largely on credit.
Minimum payment $265 on a closing balance of $13,261. There's another one here. Closing balance $24,145.
With 6 credit cards, Brian's debt is over $100,000.
You can see how it becomes a vicious cycle. A person is feeling high, they've shopped, they look at their bill, they feel low, they need to feel back high again, they start shopping again.
Desperate to recapture his high, Brian raises the stakes. He's about to fly 26 hours from Australia to London, purely to shop.
I go over to London because it's a hub of shopping. You know, when you get to those big department stores, there's tons and tons of people, there's a buzz, there's sales, there's all this wonderful activity, this excitement. You thrive on it. And I'm, doing what I really, really love. This is making me feel so good. Makes me feel brilliant.
Over the years, Brian Wiseman's compulsive buying has increased. Escalation is a hallmark of addiction. It's not until he's back in his hotel room that he reflects on what he has done.
I just can't explain my actions as to why I've done this, and why I felt the way I did this morning to how I felt now. It's totally different.
Brian wants to know what's driving his compulsive behavior.
Brian, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Back in Australia, he visits an addiction specialist for the first time. Therapist Robert Mittiger quickly determines that addiction runs in Brian's family.
My mother was an alcoholic.
Yeah,
There was no doubt about that.
Well, that's significant.
Is it?
Okay. Well, genetically it's significant.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
But also emotionally it's very significant. Okay.
There's another key factor. While Brian's father neglected him, his mother compensated by spoiling him.
We went into this toy shop and she bought me toys, and I just had this amazing buzz. It was great feeling.
It's like a high.
Yeah.
A crucial question remains to be asked.
I have to ask you this question because it's just not uncommon. Well, did you at all experience any kind of sexual abuse at that time?
It was when I was 6, and he was probably around about 19, 20, and he always told me that if I said anything I'd get into big trouble, and I was too embarrassed to talk about it with my mum and dad.
Mittiger believes the trauma of that sexual abuse is highly relevant.
Coming over.
And that's very significant today because many times with addiction, it's not uncommon to have significant trauma underneath the addiction, which then continues to fuel that addictive or compulsive behaviour. It's the trauma trying to resolve itself.
The final piece of the puzzle is about to be revealed.
After sort of like this happened, after my mum found out, that was when Mum took me shopping. And
okay.
that was,
that all makes sense. That's where the addictive process started. That's exactly where the
never thought about it that way.
Well, that's most people don't, but that's the beginning of your addictive behaviour. Okay.
Brian's mother inadvertently fueled his addiction. He's been comforting himself with shopping ever since.
How does that feel?
It feels good to know,
Why?
Why and how, because for so long I've sort of like been wondering, you know, I'm just a nutcase, I'm eccentric or whatever.
No, you're not a nutcase. You're not a nutcase at all. You're suffering from addiction and trauma.
Yes, I've never discussed it with anyone, what happened when I was a kid.
Well, now we can deal with it. Now we can help you deal with it.
In discovering the trigger for his addiction, Brian takes the first step towards recovery.
It made me cry like this.
He plans to enroll in rehab.
I feel that they have a deep understanding of my problem, and this is, I think, the answer to me conquering my addiction. I'm determined I'm going to kick this.
But how does someone cope with an addiction that's driven by the most powerful human instinct of all? Janice Wright has been living a double life.
I was trying to be, soccer mom, and then, when the lights went out or we were behind closed doors, everything was different.
For years, she's lived with a secret addiction to sex.
I have a lot of shame going through me right now.
In San Diego, as in every city, there are dark corners, places where secret desires can be indulged away from prying eyes.
We are in the bottom floor of the parking garage where I work, near the fitness center that I like to come work out at. This used to be the place where I would come and have sex with men down in the backside of the garage where it was a little more dark and quiet and less traffic.
For self-confessed sex addict Janice, revisiting this place is a difficult experience.
I would have them pick me up and we would drive down to one of the lower levels of the parking lot, and if they had a place we could crawl into the back of, we would have sex.
Janice has had dozens of encounters here, often with strangers she met on the internet.
It was dangerous, but it was kind of exciting all at the same time. It's a really mixed bag of emotions.
Around the world, people who engage in reckless sex are considered irresponsible, especially if they are women. Sex addiction is seen by many as a convenient excuse for moral weakness, but evidence is building that it is real and on the rise.
People with sex addiction are called perverts or sleazy, or, they're given the same set of names that people with drug and alcohol addiction were given 30 years ago when we didn't understand that. But I think as we understand the brain better, we understand neurological disorders, and we understand how people can use repetitive behaviors to soothe themselves, sex addiction will just be a no-brainer.
To understand how she became dependent on sex, Janice confronts the past, retracing the path to addiction. Janice has been married twice. Her second husband was an active swinger.
At first I thought it was kind of exciting and different, and I was curious. There would be full couple swapping, or maybe just women together, or any combination of the mix that you could think of. When I was actually having the sexual act, it was very euphoric, and it always felt good. Always.
It's this euphoria that can make sex so addictive.
For sex addiction, the biological reward is so powerful. When you have a sexual release with self or others, you get the highest level of endorphins and enkephalins. This is the big enchilada as far as brain chemistry. It's the highest reward you get for anything in life, chemically, if you know what I'm saying, within your own body.
When Janice's second marriage failed, she turned to the internet for companionship, but all she found were men who wanted sex.
So I started not caring about the relationship part of it and just started meeting just random men.
The search for sex quickly became addictive.
I was always hunting, always. It was constant. It was all day at work. It was all night when I got home. And I would be so caught up I wouldn't have time to do anything. Not laundry, not dishes, not anything. I wouldn't take care of anything but that.
For sex addicts, the hunt is often all-consuming.
Throughout that whole process, there's a high. There's a neurochemical arousal that blocks out everything else. And so for Janice, you know, the idea that I can completely devote myself to the pursuit of this sexual conquest is a way to block out everything else in her life that might be upsetting or troubling or concerning. When she's in the hunt for that man, she doesn't have to worry about anything else in her life. She can simply focus on that.
Getting prepared for a date was always very ritualistic. It started off with, a shower and shaving and making sure there was no hair anywhere, and picking out the right lingerie and, the right blouse that would show the right amount of cleavage and, but still be tasteful.
For most women, this ritual would lead to candlelit dinners or romance. But for Janice, it was sex with a stranger in a changing room at the gym.
This is the locker room in the building that I work at that goes adjacent to our workout area. That has a lock on the door that allows me to keep the room private so I could have men here to entertain.
Janice routinely had sex here before heading to work upstairs. Part of the thrill was the risk of being caught.
And this is the shower area where we used to wind up in all the time. We'd either have sex in here or just take a shower afterwards and have a, pretty erotic shower. It was a lot of fun in here.
But after the pleasure came the pain.
Afterwards, you look at yourself in the mirror and all the shame comes back, and then you slip back down into your kind of depressed state afterwards, and because the high is gone all of a sudden.
That led Janice to plan more sex, sometimes with several different partners on the same day.
I just had this craving. It was maybe like an alcoholic or a drug addict. You just had to have it.
Janice's addiction escalated. As she searched for new thrills, her activities got more extreme.
Everything did escalate. The guys got weirder, and they always want to participate in more strange things than the guy before. I was meeting them in random places without any protection. It was really the devil just sucking me in. I was getting to the point where I thought everything was out of control. I felt like I would break.
Then Janice did something that shocks her to this day. Something that made her realize how extreme her addiction had become.
I was wearing a skirt and my bra and a jacket, so I could be easily disrobed.
Across the street was an adult cinema full of men, where Janice engaged in sex acts with multiple partners while the audience watched.
I can see their faces in my head, and it just wasn't very pretty. It hurts a lot that I actually let myself do that and was with all these just strangers.
When you're acting in your sexual addiction, you feel shame constantly. When people find out about your addiction, you feel a lot of shame because this is, you want to keep your secret world a secret world.
But Janice's secret world was about to be discovered by her own daughter, Caitlin.
My mom left for work and she had left her email open. I found videos of my mom with other people, found videos of just my mom, found videos of just guys. It was heartbreaking. It just tore me apart. Just because that's not something that she ever, was about. I don't know.
Rather than confront her mother face to face, Caitlin wrote her a letter.
You always told me your body is your temple and you should only give it to someone that loves you. Whatever happened to that? And if it's for money, I'll get it with your job.
The heartfelt letter provided the wake-up call Janice needed.
You haven't been yourself lately, drinking and smoking, I feel like.
For the first time, she realized how serious her obsession had become.
And it's just I love you with all my heart. Nothing can change that, not even eternity.
I just want you back to my mommy. So I guess that's just something to think about. It makes me sad that she knows that about me. It makes me sad that she had to be the one to call me out and that she saw the pictures and things of me. It's pretty shameful that she discovered those kinds of things.
Janice decided to fight her addiction. The key to her recovery has been to forge strictly platonic relationships.
I'm just learning how to make male friends. That's been difficult to just, keep that kind of boundary and try not to cross over the line.
With her daughter's support, Janice now avoids situations that might invite temptation.
I really am.
Okay, Mom. I love you. I'm always gonna be there.
But what if your addiction is deadly and you don't want to give it up? In a place where most fear to tread, a man prepares to risk everything for a fleeting hit of an addictive chemical, adrenaline. Australian-born Chris McDougall, known as Doogs, arrives in Switzerland, one of the only places in the world where he's legally allowed to get his fix.
If I don't get to do it, I just get grumpy and frustrated and restless and start bouncing off the walls pretty much, so I need to get out there. I need to get out there now.
To pay for this trip, Doogs spent the last month working on an oil rig off the coast of West Africa.
Working for me is like being in a prison, being stuck on a big chunk of steel in the middle of the ocean. It's very, very frustrating.
Being cooped up for so long has only made Doogs more desperate to indulge in his passion, base jumping. It's a sport with a fatality rate so high, many consider it taboo.
I have seen a lot of things go wrong. You're doing something where in 10 seconds you could be dead. Okay.
But that doesn't deter him. Just 3 hours after arriving in Switzerland, he and his jump partner are on a ledge high above the Lauterbrunnen Valley, risking their lives for a rush.
Ready? When you step off, everything goes quiet. All your blinkers open up, and you can all of a sudden see the world, you can hear everything, see everything, feel everything. All your senses are going crazy, It's just a massive hit of life. Just hits you like a brick wall. It's just like, yeah, I love this, it's beautiful, let's do it again.
This jump would be terrifying to most people, but for Chris McDougall, it's not enough. He's already planning a bigger hit off a higher, more dangerous peak. A towering cliff known as Buffalo Bill, that he has never jumped off before.
I don't know if it's an adrenaline fix or just the need to be free, but you know, I need to do something that's adventurous, you know, otherwise I just go crazy. Yeah.
Extreme sports people like Dukes are often referred to as adrenaline junkies. Some experts believe they could be classified as addicts.
Adrenaline addiction, although it's not a proper psychiatric term, can be considered a behavioral addiction. If the activity has taken over your life, if you've lost people that you love, if you have gotten injured and you continue to do it despite knowing the consequences and despite experiencing the consequences firsthand, that to me is an adrenaline addiction.
Dukes is now 34, an age when most men would be settling down, yet he continues to base jump, dicing with death time and time again. His survival flies in the face of base jumping's reputation as the world's most dangerous sport.
You can pack a parachute perfect every time, and 9 out of 10 times it'll open perfect, but there's times when it won't. If you base jump long enough, you're going to see someone get hurt, and you're going to see someone die.
Because of base jumping's high mortality rates, it's outlawed in many countries, but here in Switzerland it remains legal. So alpine towns like Lauterbrunnen have become a mecca for jumpers from around the world.
The two best things that describe base jumping. Jugs.
Fanatics of the sport soon find themselves shaping their lives to fit their addiction.
You start to organise your life in a way that enables you to jump rather than thinking about work and career. You're thinking about time off and how to make money.
Adrenaline highs are short-lived, but by recording his jumps, Dukes is able to relive the good times and the bad times.
This is a photo taken back in 2003 at the World Base Jumping Championships, and it's one of my sort of sadder photos because it's a photo of 8 really good friends having a really good time, and over the course of the next sort of couple of years, 4 of those guys died in the photo, so there's only 4 of us left, all different incidents. Slim passed away later that year. It's Slim's memorial jump. Jason passed away on a cliff in Australia. And then in 2006, Coombsy died on a cliff in Norway. And then 2008, Steve died on another cliff in Norway when his wingsuit hit a cliff.
Up to 50 of Dukes' friends have died chasing the dream. Though base jumping's extreme risk scares him, it's also what keeps him coming back for more. If there were no risk, there would be no reward in the brain and no addiction.
People become addicted to living on the edge, which is what an addict is. You know, most addicts are living on the edge, and it's part of the disease.
It's early morning in Lauterbrunnen. Today, Dukes plans to throw himself off the 2,000-meter cliff called Buffalo Bill, a jump he's never attempted before. As he prepares his wingsuit, Dukes is already anticipating the pleasure he'll receive from his base jump.
The excitement that Dukes describes when he's planning to do his next activity is similar to the excitement that people that are addicted to drugs experience when they are actually getting their paraphernalia and they drug. They actually will tell you that they get high just by that expectation of getting the drug.
To access the precarious launch site, Dukes and his jump partner Ludo charter a helicopter.
Obviously nervous because it's a big jump, but just controlling that, and it's going to be awesome. Yeah, really cool. Just pretty concerned about the wind. It looks quite strong up there, so we'll just have to check it out once we get up there.
As he mentally prepares to risk his life, Dukes tries not to think about the dangers, but one accident in particular still haunts him: the skydiving death of his girlfriend, Claire.
she had a main reserve entanglement and hit the ground at about 200 k's an hour. I watched the whole thing, and I was the first to land by her lifeless body. That was heavy, you know. That's probably the worst it can get, is watching a girlfriend die. 10 seconds earlier, I just gave her a kiss in freefall, and bang, she's dead. Really made me realise how precious life is. It's 1 second you're alive, next second you're dead.
Yet even the impact of that death hasn't stopped Dukes from risking his own life for a rush.
After losing your girlfriend, you know, you think that a person would start to think about this and think, well, you know, I've done it, like I should move on. When the person is not able to do that, then you're really starting to consider that this person has a serious addiction. And he could die from that.
Even though Dukes is one of the world's most experienced base jumpers, it doesn't necessarily mean he plays it safe. His brain has become tolerant of life-threatening situations, so to get the rush he needs, he seeks out bigger and more dangerous jumps. It's just another example of how addictions can escalate and become deadly.
You have to ask yourself this every day, every jump. Is it worth dying for? And if it is, cool, keep going. If it's not worth it, then stop, you know. For me, the risk versus reward is still there. The reward's greater than the risk.
At the launch site, Dukes and Ludo prepare their wingsuits and high-visibility smoke canisters.
I'll stop everything that's shaking. I'll stop it from shaking. Normally my knees and my hands will be shaking a little bit. I'll calm my heart rate down by just taking 3 or 4 deep breaths.
He's travelled 5,000 kilometres for the chance to stand on the edge of an abyss and step into the unknown.
Ready, set, go!
Mid-flight, a smile creases Duke's face, a sign the feel-good chemical dopamine is doing its work.
You're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, you're just thinking about the now, this one moment in time. It's a special feeling.
Almost 2 kilometers from his launch pad, high over the Lauterbrunnen Valley, Dukes pulls his chute. He says he never feels more alive than at moments like this.
An adrenaline addict is used to being in a constant state of excitement, of thrill, of being like an inch away from death. They don't feel alive unless they're literally at a threshold between life and death.
Whether I die tomorrow doing this, or whether I make it for another 50 years doing this, I'm happy. I'm on bonus time now. I've had the best life ever at 34. I've probably lived more than 20 people have lived. And to continue this, awesome. If it ends tomorrow, no worries. It's been a blast.
Dukes has beaten the odds yet again and survived another jump.
That was fun!
But how does the buzz he feels right now compare to what gamers experience in cyberspace? In suburban bedrooms, in darkened halls, a new addiction is taking hold, and its prey is the next generation. South Korea, the most wired nation on Earth. 90% of homes are connected to cheap, high-speed broadband, but such ready access to the web comes at a price. Up to 2 million Koreans are addicted to the internet. Most of them are children.
Students were dropping out of school to play the internet. Many were running away from home to stay in internet cafes.
In their thousands, Korean youths flocked to PC bangs, dimly lit internet parlors located on almost every street corner. Online computer games are now the most popular pastime for 80% of young Koreans. The players don't speak to each other, they're absorbed in cyberspace.
I think internet games are very similar to drugs. Many kids are addicted here, so I worry about that.
Single mother Shi Eun-mi is also worried. Her 15-year-old son, Hong-gu, is a compulsive gamer.
It really breaks my heart when he plays the game all the time. He only gets up to eat and go to the toilet.
Since Hong-gu started gaming, his schoolwork has suffered and he no longer plays outside.
Last summer holiday, I woke up around 11 in the morning and played games 13 to 14 hours non-stop.
His mother tried everything to stop his obsession.
I'm quite embarrassed to say it, but I lost myself in anger once and threw away the computer monitor.
Hong-gu shows all the hallmarks of addiction.
I know there are things I'm supposed to do, but I never get around to them because I'm gaming. Also, even though I've got a sore back from sitting down all the time, I still keep playing. So I think I'm addicted.
Around the world, the fear is growing that internet gaming may be the addiction of the future.
I've had cases where people have been online with their gaming 24 hours at a time. I've had people who have gone days without eating properly. People who have gone hours and hours without going to the toilets.
But nowhere have the consequences of gaming addiction been more extreme than in South Korea. In 2005, 28-year-old Lee Sung-sok played non-stop for over 50 hours. Mesmerized by the game, he ignored his body's warning signs. Finally, he fell to the floor, later pronounced dead from exhaustion and dehydration. In South Korea, there have been at least 22 deaths attributed to gaming.
There was a case where a married couple didn't look after their baby due to their internet addiction. Their baby starved to death.
Shi Eun-mi doesn't want her own son to become a statistic, so she's sending him to a government-run boot camp. This is an internet rescue school where Hong-gu will spend the next 12 days. It was established in 2007 by the government when it realized South Korea faced a gaming epidemic.
For the first 2 to 3 days, there's a lot of resistance from the kids. They're all in denial and insist they're not addicted.
The physical activities are designed to encourage kids to reconnect with others face to face.
Most children who attend this school don't know how to socialize on a day-to-day basis with children in their own age group.
Hung-gu also spends time daily with a counselor, and together they set boundaries for computer use.
He advised me I could convert my internet playtime into playing sports or other activities, like reading books.
South Korea's gaming problem is more severe than elsewhere, but some experts believe it's an early warning of what could happen worldwide because the appeal of playing games is universal.
We play games as a species because we are excited by chance, by risk, and by the opportunity to challenge ourselves and test ourselves in an environment that's going to yield something indeterminate and surprising.
It's been a long 12 days for Hung-gu at Internet Rescue School, but the boot camp has built Hung-gu's confidence and helped him forge friendships beyond cyberspace.
I got friendly with the kids here. I will miss them, but some live in my town and I'll see them when I go back home.
As the course draws to an end, parents are taught how to assist their children in overcoming their addiction. And the participants make a pledge to spend less time on the internet.
I think I will do internet for 2 to 3 hours at the most. If I get bored, I will go out to play.
Shion-mi hopes for her son's sake that the pledge lasts.
I believe he will change. As we've seen at camp, he can be a very active person. I hope in the future he will be able to live like other children and enjoy life beyond the computer world.
From Forbidden Love to Fake Beauty, the brand new Extreme Live season continues on Wednesday at 9.